shot back is to decide which ones deserve answers. A loud cheer came from the audience this time, cutting through the tension. Colbert glanced toward them, clearly weighing his next move, and disastrously decided to double down. "Okay, then maybe your family will answer for you," Colbert said, the smile on his face not reaching his eyes. "Your daughters, they've been in the public eye. They've done interviews. Have they ever told you maybe you should, I don't know, retire the tough guy act? Be more relatable?" The shift in Stallone's demeanor was instant. The easy posture vanished, his jaw clenched. "Leave my kids out of this." Cor raised his hands like he was disarming a bomb. "I'm not attacking. I'm just you are," Stallone interrupted. "And I'm telling you that's the line. You don't cross it." The audience broke into applause again, longer this time. Some people whistled. Collar tried to mask his discomfort with another joke. "Hey, no offense meant, just thought the audience would like to know." "They don't need to know anything about my family," Stallone said sharply. "They came to see a conversation about my work, not my dinner table." For the first time, Colbert seemed slightly rattled. His usual rhythm was slipping. All right, he said quickly. "We'll keep it on the career. But tell me this, when you take these new roles, the streaming stuff, the reality show, is it because you still love the work or because you can't stand not being in the spotlight?" The audience let out an audible, "Ooh." Sensing the provocation, Stallone sat back, staring at Colbert like he'd just been given permission to drop the gloves entirely. "You want the truth?" Stallone said. "I could disappear tomorrow and be fine, but I work because I've still got something to say. And because I earned the right to say it without someone like you trying to twist it into a headline." The applause was immediate, drowning out whatever Colbert was about to say next. And in that moment, it was clear to everyone the host wasn't in control anymore. Colbert tried to force a laugh. All right, Sly. I think we should cut to no," Stallone said, leaning forward, voice firm. "We're not cutting to anything. Not until I finish." The entire studio went silent. "I've been respectful," Stallone continued. "I've answered your questions. I've let the jab slide, but you've made it clear you're not here to talk. You're here to score points, and I don't play that game." Colbert's smile was gone now. He looked down at his desk, then back up at Stallone. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Stallone said, pushing himself up from his chair. "You've got one more question before I walk out of here." Gasps from the audience filled the room. Colbert blinked, caught between his instinct to hold on and the realization that he might have just pushed his guest too far. And then, with every camera locked on them, he slowly set his cards down. The studio had gone so still you could hear the faint hum of the lights above. Cameras were fixed on the two men. Colbert, sitting back in his franchises, stared at his Stallone like he was trying to read the ending of a book he hadn't written. Stallone, still standing, loomed over the desk with a calm intensity that made his earlier patience seem like a distant memory. Cor tried to ease the tension with a chuckle. "One more question, huh? Sounds like I should make it count." The audience tittered nervously. Stallone didn't smile. "Make it worth my time." There was a pause. Colbert tapped his cards against the desk, eyes flicking toward the camera before locking back on Stallone. "All right, you've built a career on being the underdog who never quits. But here you are threatening to walk off because the conversation got uncomfortable. Isn't that quitting?" Gasps shot through the audience. It was a gut punch of a question, and Colbert knew it. Stallone didn't flinch. "You think walking away from a stacked deck is quitting?" "No, quitting is staying in a game that's rigged against you just to keep someone else happy." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, some even standing again. Colbert held his hands up, trying to speak over the noise, but the momentum was gone from his voice. "This isn't a game, Sly," Colbert said, leaning forward now, perhaps hoping to reclaim the upper hand. "It's a conversation." "No," Stallone replied, voice hardening. "It's a performance. You've been playing to the crowd since the first question. Every jab, every smirk, every little twist in your wording. It's not about truth, it's about a reaction. And I'm not here to be your setup man." The audience clapped again, but there was an undercurrent of disbelief now, like they knew they were watching a moment that would trend within the hour. Colbert opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally said, "If that's how you feel, maybe we should wrap this up." Stallone took a half step back, nodding slowly. "Yeah, maybe we should." He reached down, unclipped the small microphone from his lapel, and placed it carefully on the desk in front of Colbert. The sound of the metal clip hitting the wood was loud in the silence. The camera operators instinctively zoomed in, catching every second. "I've been doing this a long time, Stephen," Stallone continued, his tone softer now, but still edged with steel. I know the difference between a good conversation and a cheap shot. You want ratings, you'll get them. But you're not going to get them at my family's expense or by twisting my words into something they're not. Colbert shifted in his seat, glancing toward the producers offstage. Sly, nobody's twisting. You already did, Stallone cut in, his voice sharp enough to slice through whatever Colbert had planned next. And I'm done. The crowd erupted again, this time in a mix of cheers, gasps, and murmurs. Some people clapped in solidarity. Others just sat frozen. Stallone turned toward the audience, giving them a small, appreciative nod. Then, without another glance at Colbert, he stepped away from the desk. As he passed the first row, a woman reached out to shake his hand. He clasped it briefly, smiling faintly, before moving toward the side exit of the stage. The cameras tracked him, catching the way the studio doors swung open, spilling in the harsh white light from the hallway. Performance? Colbert shifted in his chair, but still tried to play it off. I'm just asking if you ever thought it might hold you back. Stallone's gaze sharpened. It didn't. I'm sitting here, aren't I? The audience erupted again, this time with a few whistles. Colbert tried to chuckle. Touché, but seriously, wasn't it tough dealing with people making fun of you early on? It was tough, Stallone said evenly. But I didn't let them define me. I worked until they had to respect me. And if they still don't, that's their problem. Colbert nodded, but his next line was another jab. Right. But you see how some people might think maybe that chip on your shoulder is part of why you still take certain roles. You know, proving something. Stallone's answer was instant. Every role I've taken is because I saw a story worth telling, not because I needed to prove something to some late-night host. The crowd reacted again louder this time. Colbert's smirk faltered. He glanced at his cards, then at the audience, then back to Stallone. Well, Colbert said, if you're not proving anything, maybe we can talk about something a little more personal. You've got daughters, right? The shift was immediate. Stallone's jaw tightened. Yeah. They ever tell you to, I don't know, maybe tone it down, be less Rambo at the dinner table? Colbert asked with a grin. Or are they just used to Dad growling through the mashed potatoes? Some audience members laughed, but others groaned quietly. Stallone didn't laugh at all. Careful, Stallone said, his voice suddenly quieter. The kind of quiet that made people lean in. You're getting close to a line. Colbert tilted his head, playing innocent. Just making conversation. Conversation's one thing, Stallone replied, leaning forward again. But my family isn't part of your punchlines. The temperature in the room dropped. Even the band seemed to have gone still. Colbert chuckled lightly, holding his hands up. Hey, I get it. But come on, Sly. You've put your family in interviews before. You've talked about them in the press. I'm not asking for their social security numbers here. You're asking for a laugh at their expense, Stallone said flatly. That's not happening. The audience applauded again, stronger this time, as if picking a side. Col's smile tightened even further. Well, I think our viewers just like hearing about the man behind the muscles. But if you want to keep it all under wraps, that's exactly what I want, Stallone said, standing a little taller in his seat. Because unlike some people, I know where the line is. The tension was now a living thing in the studio. You could almost hear the director in the control room whispering into the headset. Do we cut to break? Not yet. This is gold. Colbert tried to reset. Okay, let's bring it back to the career. But Stallone cut him off. No, let's not. You've been poking at me since I sat down. My films, my voice, my politics, my family. You think it's clever. I think it's tired. The audience roared in approval. Colbert's cheeks flushed slightly. Sly. It's just the show. It's what we do here. Then maybe this isn't the place for me, Stallone said, voice steady but heavy with finality. The audience gasped. Collar blinked momentarily thrown. You're not leaving, are you? Stallone didn't answer. Not yet. But the look in his eyes said it was only a matter of minutes. The tension was already thick enough to slow the air in the studio, but Colbert didn't seem willing to back down. If anything, he leaned into it, his voice adopting that half-amused, half-condescending tone he used on guests when he thought he had the upper hand. You know, Sly, Colbert said, eyes glinting under the studio lights. People admire you for your grit, your determination, but there's also this, let's call it legendary stubbornness. Is that what's happening here? You don't like the questions, so you dig in. You get defensive. Stallone didn't blink. Stephen, I've answered tough questions for decades. It's not about being defensive. It's about respect. There's a difference between asking and poking. Colbert leaned back, smiling like he'd just been given a perfect setup. But poking is fun. That's what my audience comes for. The audience's laughter was scattered. Some people were with him, others shifting in their seats. Stallone shook his head slightly, as if deciding whether this was worth continuing. He finally spoke, his voice lower now, forcing the room to lean in. Fun's one thing. Making someone a target for a laugh is another. I've taken hits in the ring and on screen, but there's a point where you're not looking for truth. You're just looking for a punchline. The crowd applauded that, and this time it was louder than before. A few people even stood momentarily. Colbert glanced toward them, his smirk faltering for just a heartbeat before snapping back into place. All right, he said, drawing the word out. Maybe we steer away from the punches and talk about your softer side. You've always played these ultra-masculine, indestructible guys, but is that really you? Or is Sylvester Stallone just as much a character as Rocky? That one landed differently. Stallone leaned forward in his chair, elbows on his knees, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. I've never been indestructible. I've been broke. I've been rejected. I've been told I'm nothing. Rocky wasn't a mask. It was the truth. The part of me that refused to quit when everyone else said I should. The applause swelled again, but Colbert was already talking over it. So you'd say you've never played a role in public? Never thought, hey, maybe I should give them what they expect, even if it's not really me. Stallone's brow furrowed. I don't fake it. Not in the ring, not on camera, and not in this chair. Colbert gave a mock, incredulous look. So you're saying this? He gestured between them. Is 100% authentic Sly Stallone. That's exactly what I'm saying, Stallone replied. His tone was flat, but the way he locked eyes with Colbert made it clear. The patience was running out. Collar decided to push anyway. Even when it comes to politics, the crowd groaned softly, sensing the trap. Stallone let out a short breath. We've already been there, Stephen. You really want to go around again? Colbert feigned innocence. Hey, my job is to ask the questions my viewers want answered. And my job, Stallone. When a Hollywood legend sits across from one of late night's sharpest tongues, you expect quick wit and maybe a few playful jabs. But what happens when those jabs turn into barbs? Digging at a man's legacy, his voice, his politics, even his family? What unfolded on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert wasn't just an interview. It was a verbal cage match. By the end of the night, Sylvester Stallone wouldn't just be walking out of the studio. He'd be leaving Colbert with a stunned audience, a cold cup of coffee, and a silence that no punchline could fix. The band wrapped up their jazzy intro as Stephen Colbert stepped into the spotlight with his trademark grin. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight is a man who's punched, kicked, and exploded his way into cinema history, though some would argue it's mostly been the same movie over and over again. Please welcome Sylvester Stallone. The audience roared as Stallone emerged from backstage in a perfectly tailored black suit. He gave a small wave, his smile modest but confident. Colbert met him at the desk with an exaggerated handshake. Sly, welcome to the show. I have to admit, seeing you here is a little surreal. I mean, Rocky and Rambo sitting in my studio. That's pretty much your resume, right? There were chuckles from the audience. Stallone's smile tightened a fraction. Well, those films did a little more than pay the bills, he said, voice scrawly but warm. They connected with people. Colbert leaned back in mock contemplation. Sure. And aside from 30 or 40 years of doing those two guys, have you done anything else the Academy missed? The crowd gave an awkward laugh. Stallone tilted his head, the corner of his mouth curling into something between amusement and warning. I guess you missed Creed and Copland and a few others that didn't involve headbands or boxing gloves. Colbert smiled like he'd landed a point. Touché, but come on, you've got to admit, most people see you and think of one thing. Big muscles, big guns, not a lot of, how do I put it? Shakespeare. Yeah, well, Stallone said, leaning forward slightly. Shakespeare never took a body blow from Apollo Creed. The audience erupted in laughter, but his eyes stayed locked on Coors. The host smirked. Fair enough. But you've got that distinctive way of talking. You know, that slow, slurred Stallone thing. Ever been tempted to hire a voice coach? Or do you just figure, hey, the mumble made me millions. Why fix it? The air in the studio shifted. The laughter was thinner now. It's called a facial nerve injury from birth, Stallone said evenly. Doctors messed up with the forceps. People laughed at me my whole life for the way I speak. I guess I should thank them. It made me fight harder. Colbert nodded slowly, his smirk dimming, but then tried to recover. Right. And now here you are still doing action movies, even though some critics say you're just milking nostalgia. I tell stories people care about, Stallone replied without hesitation. If that bothers critics, they can watch something else. The band was silent now. The laughter had evaporated. Colbert shuffled his cards, looking for an angle. Speaking of things people care about, you've been pretty open about supporting Donald Trump. Is that about politics or about staying in the spotlight? The audience gave a collective "oh." Stallone didn't smile this time. That's about me making my own choices. And if you think I need anyone's coattails to get here, you haven't been paying attention for the last 50 years. The host grinned thinly. Hey, just asking questions. Yeah, Stallone said, voice dropping an octave. But some questions aren't about curiosity. They're about bait, and you might want to stop fishing. The tension in the room was now thick enough to cut with a Rambo knife. The applause sign blinked above the audience, but the clapping this time was hesitant, like they were unsure if they were supposed to be enjoying themselves anymore. Stallone's last answer had changed the air in the studio. He sat back in his chair, shoulders squared, gazed steady on Colbert like a fighter, watching for the next swing. Colbert tried to keep the easy late-night grin plastered on. Sly, he began, I get it. You've got your convictions, but you can't deny your support for Trump raised some eyebrows in Hollywood. Is this about the politics or about making sure your name stays in headlines? A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the crowd. Stallone's lips pressed together for a beat before he answered. Stephen, I've been in headlines since 1976. I don't need anyone else's shadow to stand in. Colbert tapped his stack of cards on the desk, clearly not ready to let it go. Sure. But isn't it fair to say your career's been, kind of fueled by big brands? Rambo Rocky now a little boost from politics. Feels like you know how to ride the wave when it's convenient. Stallone leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees, voice low and deliberate. You think 50 years of working in this business is riding a wave? Try building one. Try holding it up when everyone's waiting for it to crash. The audience applauded louder than Colbert seemed to expect. He held up a hand to settle them. Hey, I'm just saying you've been smart about staying relevant. Nothing wrong with that. But don't you think there's a point where you step back, let the younger guys take the spotlight? Stallone didn't flinch. I've been hearing that since my 30s. Funny thing is, the ones telling me to step back usually can't keep up. That got another pop from the audience. Colbert smirked, but there was a flicker of irritation in his eyes. Now, he shuffled his cards again, as if looking for a new weapon. So, speaking of keeping up, Colbert said, tilting his head. You've got a very distinctive way of talking. It's part of your brand now, but did you ever think about changing it? Maybe a little vocal training. Or is mumbling just part of the Stallone charm package? The laughter from the crowd this time was mixed. Some genuine, some uncomfortable. Stallone's smile dropped completely. You mean the speech pattern I was born with because of nerve damage? The one that made me the punchline in school? The one I turned into an Oscar-winning? Beyond. Colbert tried to regain control. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sylvester Stallone. Everyone give him a hand. The applause that followed was awkward, scattered. It wasn't for him. Backstage, producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. The segment was blown, the scheduled banter gone. Colbert shuffled his cards again, looking like a man who'd been dealt a hand he couldn't play. We'll be right back, he said quickly, forcing a smile as the show cut to commercial. But in the audience and in millions of living rooms that would later see the clip, the moment was already locked in memory. Stallone walking out head high while Colbert sat in silence, his smirk gone for good. And just like that, Sylvester Stallone walked off The Late Show, leaving Stephen Colbert with nothing but silence and a whole lot of questions. But now we want to hear from you. Who is in the right here? Stallone or Colbert? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this one is going to keep people talking. If you enjoyed this story and want more dramatic moments from the world of celebrity interviews, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, the next one is going to be even bigger.